Yeah, earlier this week, study came out, the test results showing that Michigan third graders, it was just horrible when it came for reading and so forth. I'm joined by Kim now on the screen. Hello, and you're in Michigan, correct?
Hi. I'm actually not in Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
I
Sorry.
That's okay. I was born and raised in Michigan, left Michigan for many years, have lived in a couple different states with our kids, had the benefit of coming back to Michigan several years ago, spent about 5 years in Michigan, and then God puts us where he wants us. So we are back in New Jersey.
New
So
Jersey.
yeah,
Wow.
so unique perspectives on education, public and private, from many different districts.
Okay.
So I am not a teacher, full disclosure, just a really passionate mom who spent a lot of time advocating and learning about what can be changed, what can't be changed, and kind of just the state of affairs from my viewpoint, from what I've had to go through with both of my kids in several education systems, but the Michigan education system.
Okay, I think a lot of people, I mean, I work in the news, I study policy. I know that things were bad, but this week in Michigan, and you may have seen it, I posted it, 6 out of 10 third graders are not proficient in reading. A lot of it is being tied to, in Michigan, we had some of the toughest COVID lockdowns, but more and more money is poured into public schools, but it just doesn't seem like the results are there, and it's really scary indeed. And now we're having across the country parents either going homeschooling or private or charter. A lot of people seem to be losing trust in the public school system. What's your take on all of that?
That could be a 5-hour show.
Yeah, I know, I
um,
know. But
so my perspective from living it with my two kids, COVID opened the lid or exposed the wound, whatever analogy you want to use, to what was actually being taught in schools. And I don't think there's bad schools or bad teachers. I think there's bad choices. And the COVID situation had everyone at their kitchen table, the parents, the grandparents, the babysitter, the neighbor, kids themselves, and you're trying to teach your kids. And all of that was a challenge for everybody, regardless of where they live or how they do it. But when your child can't write a sentence, that's a problem. When your child can't read the paragraph, that's a problem. And there's a couple different factors to that. I mean, there's kids in special education who have disabilities. That is a factor in reading and literacy, and there's a factor in what the content is. So back when we lived in Jersey the first time, was about the time, I'd say 2014 now, don't quote me on that, it could be off a little bit based
okay,
upon where it started,
yeah.
was this push for balanced literacy, Lucy Culkin's Pearson model of education. That's a lot of words.
Yeah.
Balanced literacy is more of a say it how you want to, and I know I'm making this very minimal.
No, I like
but,
that.
Is very more about feelings and less about structure. And that's, I'm going to have critics criticize me, but I have a point to this.
Okay.
Structured literacy is 70s and 80s when we were in school. You had phonics, you had grammar, you had parts of speech, you had subject and predicate, you had actions. You could tell a child to write what is a noun, they could write a noun or an adjective or an adverb.
Yeah.
There's the removal of spelling words and spelling tests. There's the removal of spelling groups. Remember on the board, you'd have this set of spelling words for these kids and then a different set of spelling words for the next group of kids.
Yeah.
My children, when we lived in Michigan in an affluent district, they got 1 year of that in elementary school. And they removed spelling groups, they removed spelling words, they removed spelling tests, they removed reading groups, they removed differentiated reading and called it leveled reading. And
so, wow, was that state? Well, you can only speak to your district.
I can only speak to my child. Yeah. I believe when a district adopts a policy or a method of teaching, they adopt it for all of their schools. Yeah. So cursive is a different debate, but there are ways to teach children how to write printed words, and there's a proper way to do that. Yeah. And when you eliminate spelling and phonics and structured literacy and grammar and punctuation, everyone's all of a sudden surprised. And that was way back in 2014 that trend started. I don't know exactly when it hit Michigan.
Well, what were they doing instead? And
So
I guess you can explain that the learning you explained, they replaced it with something that was more streamlined for everyone,
So we had the benefit with our oldest child, who is now 15, to have the last old school teachers, the ones that still wore a tie, the ones that still wore a dress, the ones that, you know, you had to say please and thank you. My kids had the benefit, they had them and then they retired. So we got the last, and I'm not saying new teachers are bad, that's not what I'm saying. No. But I'm saying I had teachers who, instead of all these rules, said, listen, if your kid's a problem, I'm calling you and expect you to deal with it.
Yep.
So we were very blessed to have that. And I've never had a bad teacher. I've had teachers make some poor choices. I've had administration not support teachers. That's a big issue all over the place. And then there's the school boards who don't hold everybody accountable. So that's another whole issue. That's a different segment. That's a different segment. But so the bottom line is, my children did not learn states and capitals. My children did not learn the presidents. My children did not do book reports.
What could you, what was, I don't know if it's how to describe, what were they learning? How was it? How do you describe what was in its place?
Well, there's not textbooks. So textbooks don't necessarily come home anymore anywhere. You know, it's kind of a blur, right? You're busy, you're working hard, you're sending your kids to school, you're in a safe community. You think everything's fine. Yeah. You know, then you have your kid write a thank you note for a birthday party gift and you're like, whoa. What's going on here? We can't write little Johnny a thank you note for the, you know, gift they gave my kid. And then you start delving into it. And then they took away advanced ELA for sixth graders the year my daughter turned sixth grade. Yep. So I have a kid who's an advanced child and a kid who lives in special education. And I see both. I live in both. Okay. The year of COVID, when we had this asynchronous or whatever they want to call it was, I saw teaching it was a mess. So we were fortunately able to pull her from the public system, put her in a private school where she attended every day. And that saved her. And she did not miss a beat. She had her advanced classes, she had textbooks, she had grammar, she had history, she had all the stuff from the 70s and 80s, you know, that I would consider traditional learning. Yeah. With a high expectation, with red pens, with, you know, things that were marked wrong. Homework, imagine that, homework. The public system and the elementary level, and there's debates on homework, but so there's all that. And then our younger one wasn't able to go to the private school for a couple different reasons. And I, you know, after looking at the IEP and looking at the evaluations and looking at the goals and the progress, I wasn't seeing progress. And I said, well, where's the spelling words? Where's the grammar? Where's the parts of speech? Where's the subject and predicate? Like, what are we doing? And they go with structured literacy, Lucy Culkin's, this is our model. And I'm like, well, hello. So I said, no, I found my own curriculum. I found, it's called Step Up to Writing, Step Up to Reading. It's a curriculum actually the district had. And I said, well, what you're doing isn't working. So we need to do something different. And because I had a great rapport with my district and really tried to have that partnership between the parent and the school, they worked with me. And I said, let's try this. Let's try it for 6 weeks. If we're not improving, we can find something else. Because you're not limited to a particular curriculum. Districts, I believe, still have the autonomy and authority to decide what curriculum they teach and how they teach it. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think parents, I mean, you put your trust in the schools, you don't think you have to do that much homework. And I'm not saying I had bad teachers for my kids. I was the PTA, like I was there. I mean, I had a great working relationship with my district despite some challenges that I had with it. But I always came to them with facts. I always said, this is why I feel this way, let's try this. And because it was hard to be patient and professional, but you have to be. And we did that. And they had it actually in the district, and they said, let's implement this. So I put structured literacy in my child's IEP, and my child became literate because of that. Now, I quickly want to make sure I plug this before it, so people understand dyslexia is an issue. It is a legitimate disability. My child does not have that disability, but dyslexia is not recognized in Michigan the way it should. So there's a whole issue with that. The state is right on saying that. A lot they're not right on, but they are right on that. And a big misconception with children who have learning disabilities regarding reading is that they think if they give them more time in a reading recovery, that will fix it. So let me tell you what, a child with a disability has a disability 24 hours a day. They don't have it for the 20 minutes 3 times a week they step into that resource classroom. If they can't read in English, they can't read in history, they can't read in science, they can't read in math, they can't read at lunch, the lunch signs. They have that disability or that challenge 24 hours a day. And a lot of people just say, give the kid more minutes, give the kid more this. And I just want to make sure people understand a child has a disability all day, not during the times they step over the threshold of the special education classroom. And I don't think, you wouldn't think I'd have to say that.
Yeah. But
you know, you can't just have an IEP for English and not for history when it involves reading and it involves writing, and speech and language teachers also don't necessarily think that written speech is part of their responsibility. And that's a big issue in Michigan and in many other states as well.
So, wow. So how is it in New Jersey? Or is it schooling where you're at now? Are things
so different? Trends happen faster on the coasts, whether that's fashion trends or other trends. So one of my children is in a private school here. That is our choice.
Okay.
To receive the achievement that is suited for her. And our other child is receiving her services through the public, but they have other types of schools here that the district can utilize that Michigan doesn't have. I don't think Michigan schools are hopeless. I think that for whatever reason, they have chosen this balanced literacy as part of a bigger agenda. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but if you use something, so I'm going to give you some data real quick. There's a website called mischools.org.
Okay.
And that is the website, I'm sorry, mischooldata.org. So mischooldata.org. That's where anyone, because it's a free website that the state of Michigan Department of Education puts out, where you can look up all kinds of data for your specific school.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And it's a little tricky. You have to spend some time with it to get what you want. But I don't like to look at kids as percentages or fractions. I like to look at them as actual human beings with beautiful little faces that deserve the world.
True.
So I pulled data from my kids' school when they were in Michigan for 3 different years. And I just want to just kind of give you this rundown where basically, if your question of this, did COVID cause this reading problem? Absolutely not. COVID lifted the lid. So schools were performing poorly way before COVID. COVID just gave everyone a lens into the situation. That is my opinion. I mean, you'd have to be kind of under a rock to not have that opinion or completely oblivious to what's going on. But in 14-15, my school my kids were at, that 3rd grade class had 87 kids in 3rd grade take the test at that time. 67 kids, not percentages, kids were proficient. 21 were not proficient. Okay. So 87 kids took it, 66 were proficient, 21 were not.
Okay.
You can percentage that to say, well, that's really not that bad. But if you want to look at it, that's about 3 to 4 classrooms in a building.
Ow, yeah.
And 21 kids. So just about a classroom of kids is not proficient.
What is...
So when you look at it that way, that's a whole different way to look at this meat and potatoes, tangible dynamic. And these kids aren't given compensatory education. These kids aren't given extra homework for the summer. They're not out. When was the last time you heard a kid being retained?
Yeah, true. No, I mean, heck, the different Baltimore, Maryland, the high school, like almost, it's horrible. The stories that you hear in different districts.
So that was 14-15. You go to 17, 18, 103 kids in third grade took the ELA test, 69% proficient, 34 not proficient.
Wow.
So that means 34 kids. Now, again, you're going to get people who are going to say the M-test doesn't matter. It's just a snapshot. Well, you know what? If it doesn't matter, then why do we have it? It's what we have. It's what they have to work with.
Well, yeah, no, we would in Flint, Michigan, I went to several events to try to have kids read the teleprompter. There were in basic sentences, and there were 6th grade, 7th grade, not even able to read.
In the third grade reading law is something every person, regardless of how you vote, can get behind because it's useless.
Yeah, that's
number one. Third grade is way too late.
Oh, yeah.
And number two, we also went through that. Your kid doesn't know how. My kid has a disability. Why are we even dealing with third grade reading law when my kid already received services for reading? So that's a whole waste of time of teachers and teachers. It's the system is flawed from so many angles that it's not a simple answer. I read that article you posted and it really just struck a nerve because I lived through this. And a lot of other parents live through this too. And this whole, look, there may be some districts that did better before. I find that hard to believe, but I mean, we were in a large district with a lot of resources. So there's no reason in 2014, 21 kids in third grade were not considered proficient. And in 2017, 34 kids are not considered proficient. And in the same comparable 23-24 year, 75 kids took it, 43 kids proficient, 32 kids not proficient.
So you're not surprised at all that parents are seeking other options because they want what's best for their kids.
Well, when we left the public system, and again, I had a very good rapport. I put in hundreds of hours to make it better, and we fixed things. Me and a lot of other parents. There's a lot of good parents. There's a lot of good teachers.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of good staff. They have to answer to a boss. There's only so much they can do with certain things. And we didn't have an awful public experience. I think people within the system continue to make poor choices and don't care to own it and realize, look, we got a problem here. So when my 5th grader who has a special IEP was going to go to 6th grade, I was not pleased with what was presented to me. To be able to, I was given, well, it's COVID, everyone's behind. And I'm like, well, we're really behind. So what are we going to do about it? And I wasn't pleased. My husband wasn't pleased. And that's okay. We have our liberty to not be pleased. And we put her in a private school and we did 5th grade over again in a different school with textbooks and spelling words and Bible memory and accountability. And I can't fix that in a system. You know what I mean?
So I got a couple minutes before I got to go. What is a solution? It sounds like there are a lot of good teachers in the public school system, but maybe they're not being listened to. They're not being heard. What is the solution to, do we need to stop it with the being politically right or doing this or that?
We need to stop hiring outside consultants and paying them lots and lots of money to come into a district that they don't live in and work in and have kids in and tell the district what they need to do. They have all of these teachers and professionals in their own district who are the experts, who know exactly what they need.
And let them do it individually instead of a one thing for everyone, just because every kid's different, every school's different. Give more power to the teachers and individuals.
They have teachers with all these degrees. Let the teachers and staff in your district who live there or work there, have kids there, have had kids go through there, or have a niece there or whatever. They're in the trenches. The teachers need to be supported.
A lot of the higher ups don't like that because they feel they have to lose control. Like there's some who would say the Department of Education should be eliminated completely. And I understand why they say that. But so local, so you're saying bring it back, forget about the hierarchy and the top down. It shouldn't be that way, really.
All this data that I pulled up, everyone has access to, including the districts. So if they really want to see how many kids, those 21 kids in 2014 or the 32 kids now those 32 kids who can't pass that third grade ELA now, someone should be accountable at some level of administration to say, well, that's in one school.
Yeah.
Just one building. How many buildings do we have in third grade where children are not proficient? And what are we doing about it? Nothing. I can tell you, I have many other parent friends who are still stuck in the Michigan system. Some have pulled a charter, some have homeschooled, some have gone to private, some have gone to a hybrid environment, because it doesn't matter if it's a disability kid or non-disability kid, there is a lack of accountability over feelings, and it's not okay. I mean, we're not going to achieve anything if we don't tell a kid, look, you got a D, and you know what, but here's what we can do about it. We don't want to tell the kid they got a D because everyone's afraid of everything.
You would think, though, the districts keep losing kids. Grand Rapids, Michigan just closed 30 schools. You would think they would sit back and realize something's not working instead of just continuing on with the old way they're doing things.
Well, you know, there's a lot of Kool-Aid out there, Dave.
Yeah, and there's a lot of So I do have to wrap it up. I want to have you on again. Last thing, what advice would you have for parents who are frustrated? What can they do?
If I would say your best resource is still to talk to your teacher. You can say to your teacher, look, I've noticed my kid's not doing well with this. Okay. What can you do for me? Can you send more work home? Is there a certain website we can access? You know, is there a certain online platform? Is there worksheets? I'll come to the school once we can copy them for you. I mean, unfortunately, parents got to roll up their sleeves and get in there. But I've never had a teacher anywhere not want to help me if I'm willing as the parent to put in the time with my kid.
Okay. So get involved, talk to the teachers, and then go from there.
Yeah, you'll find another group of like-minded people. I mean, you can go to a board meeting. I don't know if they're going to listen, but you can go. I mean, a professionally worded letter. I mean, at least you're trying to do something. But I mean, if you can pull your kids, I'd pull them. But I'm not saying every public school is bad and that's the solution for everything.
True, but hopefully they're getting a wake-up call now. So, okay, I do have to go because I'm going to be on here, but I'm going to have you back on again because there's lots of topics I want to talk to you. I'm glad I found you.
I'm happy to, if I can help one parent to do a little less work and help their kid. Like I said, I don't think there's bad places. I just think there's bad choices. And if we can reverse the bad choices or say, hey, look, we tried this, it didn't work, let's move on.
Absolutely. Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you